Good morning, everyone. Danny here with Not So Pro Mix. Today, I wanted to share with you on how I process my drums and bass. Today, I'm mixing Eliza Jane by James May. If you want to get the tracks, you can just head over to Mixing Secrets for the Small Studio. It's run by Mike Sr. Great website. Check it out. They have tons of tracks you can mix. And the best part, it's for free. But if you want to support him, he has a link on his website where you can support him. I support him every month. And I just want to thank him for the free tracks we get. All right. So with that said, let's go ahead and start. First of all, I just want to give you guys to see how the tracks sound together and the mix. So let's see. And with the rain outside, sounding questions on the roof. Can we go looking? So there you go. It's a really light, like ballad type of song. And so let's get started with the drums. All right, so with the drums, here's what they sound like with no processing at all. So they don't sound bad, they sound pretty good. So to start, I always like to mix with everything on. That way I can hear what's going on with the mix. Unless I need to solo something, then I'll solo it and, work what I need to work on. And then I try not to do mono. I hear a lot of people say mix in mono, but I went to go see Mike Guzowski a while back, and he said, somebody asked him a question, well, what do you think about mixing in mono? And he goes, well, I have two ears. And he just kind of left it at that. So I got what he was trying to say. We have two ears. We need to mix in stereo. So I'm going to try to do as the pros do and mix in stereo. So let's go ahead and take everything out of mute and we'll get it started. And with the rain outside, sounding questions on the roof. Can we go looking for that big truth? All right, well, for me, I like to, on this song anyway, I wanted to put a gate. Here's my settings and what I put. And that way you guys can hear what they sound like with this gate. So this is with and without. So I try to keep it to where the tail end of the kick still comes through. All right, so back to the mix. I have my drummer at 73, and here I put it to about 90%. I put neutral, and I didn't really do any gain changing, so let's see. And with these clouds of tears inside, raining puddles on the floor, may we find peace and comfort more. And with these clouds of tears inside, raining puddles on the floor, may we find peace. Okay, then I did notice that it did need to come down a bit through the output gain. Not too much, maybe 3 dB. And then on my EQ, kind of did a low shelf. I did a cut at 247 to cut out the boxiness. I did one at 700. Just didn't, I don't know how to describe it. It just sounded weird to me. So let's see. And with these clouds of tears inside. So yeah, you can just hear it as just kind of mid frequency range that just didn't sound good. And then I try to add some high end, the snap, but on this kick, you really couldn't hear the snap, so I didn't want to add what wasn't there. So I just kind of wanted to bring the presence out of the kick. So here it is with out first, and then I'll go to with. And with these clouds of tears inside, raining puddles on the floor. All right, so that kind of brought out the kick a bit. Now for the snare, I went ahead and did the drummer again. I did it on neutral. And on this one, I went down about maybe -8 dB. And with these clouds of tears inside, raining puddles on the floor. It just kind of brought out the snap of the snare and a little bit of the low end. All right, now for my EQ, I went ahead and went with my ozone again. And I did a low shelf at 390. I did a boost at 224 to bring out more of the lower end of the snare. I did a cut at 511, and I did a boost to add more of the presence of the snare and the snap. I boosted at 2.8 kilohertz at 2.3 to add a little bit of the snap and of the snare. So here's without and then with. And with these clouds of tears inside, raining puddles on the floor, may we find. So to me, it just sounded, it just fit better. For the hi-hat, I went with the red 3 from Focusrite, and I put it to 3:1 ratio. I went about maybe 5 on the input drive. I did a mid-slow release, or excuse me, attack. I have it on auto release. Threshold is about -24, and I didn't do any makeup gain, and it's at 100% wet. So here's with it, or excuse me, without it. And with these clouds of tears. And then with. And with these clouds of tears inside, raining puddles on the floor, may we find. And you can see I'm taking about maybe 5 dB of gain reduction. And then I went to EQ. I did a high pass around 200. And then I did a boost a little bit around 5 to kind of bring out the lower end of the hi-hat. And then I did a boost at 15.2, a little bit at 2.6. So here's without and then with. And with these clouds of tears inside, raining puddles on. So it just kind of brings out more of the hi-hat and a little bit of the snare. All right, so with the toms, I went ahead and went to about 75% of the amount. I did clarity 1, and I went about maybe -5. So here's without. And I will call, and I will call. With. And I will call, and I will call. Let me solo those for you so you guys can hear exactly what's going on. So to me, it just sounds like it brings out the high mid-range, like where the snap of the stick and the skins, and also a tiny bit of the low. Now for my EQ, well, I did a low shelf at 497, kind of slopes down right here. For my band 2, I went with 194, 3 decibel boost. I cut at 393, 3 decibels. I did another cut at 950, -2.4. And then I did a presence like the snap at 2.5 kilohertz. So here's without and then with. Just kind of adds a little more of the snap and the lower part. Now for my tom 2. So that's what it sounds like with nothing. And then I went with my drummer again at 75, clarity 1, and about -3 this time. So in that one, I'm doing about -8. It brings out, to my ears, it brings out the higher mid-range and also a little bit of the low end. So with the EQ, I did another low shelf, kind of slopes from way back here. As you can see, it's 1.7 kilohertz, and it just slopes down here. So what I'm trying to do is get rid of not as much here, but more down here, about 100. So I did a boost at 195.3. I did a cut at 422 minus 3 dB, or 3.5. And then I did a boost at 1.3 kilohertz at 2.7 decibels. So that was with, now without. So again, it brings out a little bit of the low end, and it brings out more of the snap of the stick and the skin. So now let's move over to our overheads. That's what they sounded like with nothing. I went about 80%, did clarity 2, and I went about -7. So here's without or with. And you can see I'm barely taking off maybe 2 dB of gain reduction, so. On certain parts where it really peaks, maybe 5. Now on this one you can really hear the difference. When I bypass it, the snare kind of steps to the back and the ride kind of just blends in. So I like the way it sounds with the compressor. So here's without. With. Sounds a lot good, or a lot good. Sounds a lot better. Now for my EQ, I did a high pass at 200. I did a cut at 640. I did a small little boost here at 320. And then I did a, I could probably turn this down just a bit, at 12.5. So here's without and then with. And it kind of sounds like it gained level, like volume level, but if you look over here on these meters, they're pretty much the same. This is the input and this is the output. So take a look. So you see it just kind of, I level matched it and everything, so sounds good. All right, now all together with the drums. So here's what they sounded like with nothing. And then with all the processing. Next, we're going to go to the bass. And what I did with the bass was I just did a compression about maybe 12, -12. I went 85%. I did clarity 1. And I did about -4, -5 on the output gain. So here's with and then without. So with that, it just sounded like the low mid came out, a little bit of the high mid, and then the lower end. So then I just EQ'd very lightly. I didn't do much. Did a low shelf at 187 to kind of cut off this lower part of the frequency range, and then I did a boost at 84.5. So here's with and then without. All right, to me, it just sounded like it just rounded out the lower part of the bass. And now let's see how these two sound together. All right, and then we'll go ahead and see how they sound like with no processing and then with all the processing. All right, I just kind of had to adjust the faders a bit for the bass and the snare, but overall I think it sounds pretty good. On the next video, we'll go over our the acoustic guitars and let's see, the lead vocals and the other string instruments, which is the pedal, the steel guitar, and then the mandolin. All right, so we'll see you on the next video. If you like, please like the like button and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.